The call came at 3:17 a.m. "Mrs. Martinez, this is Mercy Hospital. Your husband's been in an accident." Rosa's world shattered in the space between heartbeats. Miguel's side of the bed still warm, his coffee mug on the counter half full and forgotten. The delivery slip for brake parts scattered on the kitchen table, evidence of the midnight run that nearly killed him. Now, 3 days later, she stood in their empty garage watching insurance investigator Brad Thompson tear apart 20 years of honest work with nothing but a clipboard and a sneer. Hit and run, no witnesses, immigrant driver. Thompson checked off boxes like he was ordering lunch. Textbook insurance fraud setup. Rosa's fingers closed around her mother's silver rosary beads. The metal was warm, worn smooth by 3 generations of prayers during impossible times. Elena's voice whispered across 40 years. "Mija, la bondad regresa como lluvia. Kindness returns like rain." Miguel was helping a family, Rosa said. Sure he was. Thompson's laugh was razor sharp. These people always have a story. These people. The words hung in the air like poison. Rosa stared at the man who held her future in his manicured hands. Miguel lay broken in the ICU because someone had run him off Highway 90 and disappeared into the night. No witnesses, no justice, just accusations and a $180,000 bill that would destroy everything they'd built. Thompson snapped his folder shut. "Without proof, Mrs. Martinez, you're looking at bankruptcy. Might want to consider other options." The beads cut into Rosa's palm as she watched his Mercedes drive away. Through the window, East San Antonio was waking up. Hospital workers heading to early shifts, truckers grabbing coffee at Espinosa's, the rhythm of a community that survived on the kindness of people like Miguel. Rosa locked the shop and climbed into her truck. Selena's voice drifted from the radio, "Como da flor," like the flower that blooms despite the storm. She touched the silver cross one more time. Elena had carried these beads through the farm worker strikes, through discrimination that tried to crush her spirit, through battles that seemed impossible to win. But Elena had won, and Rosa Martinez wasn't about to lose. Starting the engine, she drove toward the hospital, and whatever fight was waiting for her there. The morning sun caught the beads hanging from her rearview mirror, casting tiny rainbows on the dashboard. Maybe kindness would return like rain after all. The ICU smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. Rosa sat beside Miguel's bed, watching machines breathe for the man who'd spent 20 years breathing life into their community. His calloused hands lay still on white sheets, hands that had never turned away a customer who couldn't pay. "Mrs. Martinez?" Dr. Patricia Hernandez appeared in the doorway. "Your husband saved 3 lives that night. The family he was helping, parents and baby girls stranded on a highway. Without those brake parts." Rosa's vision blurred. Miguel hadn't mentioned the baby. Back home, East San Antonio was settling into evening rhythm. Rosa drove past Sacred Heart Catholic Church, past Kennedy High where she'd taught ESL before budget cuts, past the corner where her mother Elena had organized grape boycotts in 1968, fighting discrimination with dignity and determination. Martinez Auto Repair sat on Commerce in Alameda, wedged between Espinosa's Cafe and the community center. The building wasn't much, cinder block walls, hand-painted sign, but it was theirs. Rosa unlocked the office and sat at Miguel's desk. Customer photos covered the walls. Graduations, weddings, quinceañeras, all made possible because Miguel kept their cars running. The wooden toolbox his grandfather brought from Michoacan in 1952. 20 years of honest work reduced to insurance suspicion. Her phone buzzed with messages. Half offered prayers and support. The other half canceled appointments. "Sorry, Rosa. Heard about the insurance trouble. Can't afford to take chances." 20 years of reputation dissolving because one man decided Miguel looked guilty. The rosary beads lay coiled on the desk. Rosa picked them up, feeling each worn bead. Elena had carried them through cotton fields and picket lines, through house-cleaning jobs where rich women treated her like furniture. "Mija," Elena used to say, "la dignidad no se compra." Dignity cannot be bought. It comes from knowing who you are when the world tells you who you should be. Rosa turned on the radio. Los Tigres del Norte filled the office with Miguel's favorite song about immigrants trapped between worlds, never fully belonging. Miguel had been born in San Antonio. His grandfather helped build the railroads, but to men like Thompson, he would always be these people. The phone rang. Martinez Auto Repair. Mrs. Martinez, Channel 5 News. We're doing a story about insurance fraud in immigrant communities. Rosa hung up. She walked through the empty garage, past the lift where Miguel had taught neighborhood kids how engines worked. Everything here told the story of a man who believed cars were just an excuse to help people. Outside, the mural smiled down at the empty street. Selena in her purple jumpsuit, painted by Miguel for Rosa's birthday. The Tejano queen reminded her that some legacies survive even when the world tried to erase them. Rosa touched the beads and whispered Elena's prayer. Virgencita, help me see the seeds Miguel planted. Help me trust they will grow. Tomorrow she would fight. Tonight she would remember why the fight mattered. The neighborhood settled into darkness around her, but Rosa Martinez wasn't ready to surrender to the shadows. The morning news made Rosa's coffee taste like ash. Police are investigating a suspicious insurance claim filed by Martinez Auto Repair following a highway accident that injured the shop's owner. Channel 5's reporters stood outside their building, turning 20 years of honest work into a 30-second scandal. Rosa turned off the TV and drove to the hospital through streets that suddenly felt hostile. Every glance seemed suspicious. Every conversation might be about her family's shame. At the ICU, Thompson was waiting. Mrs. Martinez? He stood beside Miguel's bed like a vulture claiming territory. I have a few more questions about your husband's activities. Dr. Hernandez frowned from the doorway. Mr. Thompson, this is highly irregular. Patients need. Won't take long. Thompson's smile was sharp as broken glass. Just trying to understand why Mr. Miguel was carrying $3,000 in cash that night. Rosa's blood froze. What cash? Found in his truck. Quite a lot for someone making emergency parts runs. Thompson's pen hovered over his notepad. Makes a person wonder what kind of business he was really conducting. The rosary beads cut into Rosa's palm. Miguel always carried emergency cash for customers who couldn't pay with cards. She'd seen him loan money to struggling families, never asking for it back. Miguel helps people, Rosa said quietly. That money was for customers who... Customers? Thompson laughed. At midnight on a back highway? He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Mrs. Martinez, your husband's story has more holes than a truck stop bathroom. Dr. Hernandez stepped forward. Mr. Thompson, I need to ask you to leave. This patient requires... Of course, doctor. Thompson gathered his papers with theatrical precision. Just doing my job, making sure hard-working Americans don't get scammed by people who think they can game the system. People who think they can game the system. The words hung in the sterile air like poison. After Thompson left, Rosa sat in the chapel, gripping Elena's beads until the silver warmed to body temperature. Other families prayed around her, black, white, Latino, all united by the democracy of suffering. But Rosa felt isolated, marked by suspicion that followed her name like a curse. Cuando te faltan el respeto, Elena used to say, respóndeles con dignidad. It confuses them more than anger. But maintaining dignity felt impossible when everything Miguel had built was being twisted into evidence of criminality. Rosa's phone buzzed, another cancellation, then another. By noon, 6 customers had pulled their cars from the shop. Fear spread faster than gossip in a neighborhood where families lived one breakdown away from financial disaster. She drove home to find Steve Walsh waiting in her parking lot. Walsh's automotive sat 3 blocks away, a newer shop with fancy equipment and customers who paid in credit cards instead of prayer. Rosa, Walsh's concern seemed genuine enough. Heard about your troubles. Terrible thing.
"What do you want, Steve?" "To help." He gestured toward her empty bay doors. "I know things look bad right now. Insurance investigators, police questions. People get nervous about where they take their cars." Rosa watched Walsh's face, seeing calculation behind the sympathy. "I could take some of your overflow," he continued. "Keep your customers happy while you sort this mess out. Purely temporary, of course." "Of course." Rosa's voice was flat as roadkill. "Look, Rosa, I'm not saying Miguel did anything wrong, but perception matters in business. People want to feel safe, you know. They want to deal with established operators. Established operators. Like these people and your demographic. Code words that meant everything and nothing." Rosa touched the beads in her pocket. "Thanks for the offer, Steve, but we'll be fine." Walsh's mask slipped for just a moment. "Will you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like your husband's business practices are finally catching up with him." After Walsh left, Rosa stood in the empty garage, surrounded by the ghosts of 20 years. Miguel's tools hung on their hooks like abandoned prayers. The coffee pot sat cold and forgotten. Even the radio seemed too sad to play. She pulled out Elena's beads and held them to the light. Each scratch told a story of battles fought and won. Elena had faced worse than insurance investigators in competing garages. She'd faced police dogs and tear gas, poverty and prejudice that tried to break her spirit. But Elena had survived. More than survived, she'd won. Rosa Martinez wasn't ready to lose her fight before it truly began. She picked up the phone and dialed Lulak's number from memory. If they wanted to treat this like war, she'd find herself an army.
The graffiti appeared overnight. Rosa arrived at the shop to find "Illegals Go Home" spray-painted across Selena's mural in angry red letters. The Tejano Queen's smile was obliterated, replaced by hatred that burned like acid in the morning sun. She stared at the destruction, feeling 20 years of community acceptance crumble into dust. Someone had stood here in darkness, erasing Miguel's art with deliberate cruelty. "Mrs. Martinez?" A young Latina reporter approached with a camera crew. "Channel 12 News, we're investigating reports of insurance fraud and now this vandalism. Any comment?" Rosa turned away without speaking. Every word would be twisted, every gesture analyzed for guilt. By noon, the story had spread across social media, #InsuranceFraud trending alongside photos of their defaced building. Comments ranged from supportive to vicious. These people always play victim, probably did it themselves for sympathy. Send them back where they came from. Rosa's phone wouldn't stop ringing. More cancellations. A health inspector randomly scheduling an emergency visit. The fire marshal questioning their electrical permits. The coordinated attack felt too organized to be coincidence. Then Walsh appeared on the local news. "Look, I'm not accusing anyone of anything," he said with practiced sincerity. "But when you see patterns, late-night runs, cash payments, insurance claims, people get concerned about safety standards in our community." The interviewer nodded sympathetically. "You're suggesting systemic problems?" "I'm suggesting people have a right to know who they're trusting with their vehicles." Rosa threw the remote across the room. Walsh had perfected the art of assassination by innuendo, destroying reputations while maintaining plausible deniability. That evening, she sat in Miguel's office, surrounded by Elena's things. The rosary beads lay beside a faded photo of her mother at a 1968 civil rights rally, young and fierce and unafraid. Rosa opened Elena's jewelry box and found something she'd forgotten, a yellowed envelope marked Pata Rosa in her mother's careful handwriting. Inside, a letter dated 3 months before Elena's death. "Mija, if you're reading this, you're facing a battle that feels too big to win. I know, because I faced the same fight. The growers tried to starve us out, called us criminals for demanding fair wages. But Cesar Chavez taught us something important. La justicia doesn't come from those in power. It grows from connections we build with those who understand struggle.
Rosa's hands trembled as she continued reading. I keep these beads not for protection, but for memory. Every prayer connects me to nuestra gente who faced worse and survived. The silver remembers every struggle, every victory. When you doubt your strength, touch the silver and remember, you carry the prayers of generations. Don't fight their hate with more hate, mija. Fight their lies with truth. Fight their isolation with community. The seeds you plant in darkness will grow into forests they cannot burn. Rosa pressed the letter to her chest, feeling Elena's presence fill the empty office. Her mother had faced police dogs and tear gas, poverty and prejudice designed to break spirits. But Elena had built something stronger than fear, a network of people who understood that survival meant solidarity. Rosa reached for her phone and called Carmen Delgado at LULAC. Carmen, it's Rosa Martinez. I need your help. I've been watching the news, Carmen said grimly. This smells like more than insurance fraud. You're not the first Latino business owner to face this kind of coordinated harassment. What do you mean? 3 other shops in the past 2 years. Same pattern. Insurance problems, health violations, media attention. All in neighborhoods developers want for gentrification. Rosa's blood chilled. Walsh? Connected to all of them. Nothing direct, but his fingerprints are everywhere. Rosa stared at Elena's photo, seeing her mother's determination reflected in her own dark eyes. This wasn't just about Miguel's accident. This was about erasing families like theirs from neighborhoods they'd built with sweat and sacrifice. Carmen, Rosa said quietly, I want to fight back. Good, because tomorrow we start collecting evidence. And Rosa, wear something special. We're going to remind them who they're dealing with. Rosa hung up and lifted Elena's beads to the light. Each silver link caught reflections from Miguel's tools, creating patterns of shadow and hope on the concrete walls. Tomorrow, the real war would begin.
The diesel engine rumbled like thunder as the 18-wheeler pulled into Martinez Auto Repair at sunset. Rosa looked up from documenting evidence with Carmen Delgado, watching an elderly black man emerge from the cab with the careful dignity as someone who'd earned respect mile by mile. Behind him, a younger man in pressed khakis carried a laptop bag. "Ma'am, I'm Earl Washington." His voice carried the weight of decades on the road. "This is my nephew Marcus, computer security down in Austin. Heard about Miguel's trouble through the CB network." Rosa stood slowly, Elena's beads visible over her navy blouse. "I'm sorry, but we're closed." "Your husband's got friends you never knew about," Earl continued. "Friends who don't forget kindness." Marcus opened his laptop on Miguel's workbench. "My buddy Jake Chen was driving southbound on Highway 90 that night, saw the whole thing on his dash cam." The footage was crystal clear. A silver BMW weaving erratically, the deliberate sideswipe, Miguel's truck spinning into darkness. The license plate gleamed under streetlights like an accusation. Rosa's hands trembled as she gripped the beads. "La bondad regresa como lluvia." Elena's words whispered across the years as Miguel's 20 years of midnight mercy calls manifested in this unexpected salvation. "Jake didn't know it was Miguel until he heard the CB chatter yesterday," Earl explained. "Your husband fixed Jake's transmission 3 years ago when he was broke. Wouldn't take payment until Jake got back on his feet." Carmen leaned forward. "Earl, this changes everything. We can prove criminal assault, clear Miguel's name completely." But Earl wasn't finished. "Ma'am, there's more. We truckers, we talk. This ain't just about Miguel. Other Latino businesses been getting the same treatment. Insurance problems, health violations, media attention." Marcus pulled up files on his laptop. "Walsh's name appears connected to all of them. Nothing direct, but patterns. My security background lets me see digital footprints most people miss." Rosa studied the screen, seeing years of systematic harassment laid out in spreadsheets and email trails. Walsh hadn't just attacked Miguel, he'd orchestrated a campaign to drive Latino families from neighborhoods developers wanted.
Thompson's in it too, Marcus continued. Social media connections to anti-immigration groups, financial ties to development companies eyeing East San Antonio properties. Earl's weathered hands gestured toward the defaced mural. Miguel spent years building bridges, time we helped him cross them. Rosa touched the beads, feeling Elena's presence strongly. Her mother had taught her that kindness plants seeds in unexpected soil. Miguel's generosity to struggling truckers had created an invisible network of allies spanning thousands of highway miles. "What do you need from us?" Rosa asked. Earl smiled. "Nothing, ma'am. We need to give. Jake's footage goes to the police tonight. Marcus here's going to trace every digital connection between Walsh and Thompson. And the CB network, they're spreading word about Martinez Auto Repair from here at El Paso." Carmen gathered her papers with renewed energy. "Rosa, with this evidence, we can file federal civil rights charges, pattern of discrimination, conspiracy to violate economic rights." "But that's not all," Earl said quietly. "Tomorrow morning, Channel 12's getting the real story. About Miguel's 20 years helping stranded drivers. About the baby he saved that night. About how good men get crucified while liars prosper." Rosa walked to the window, watching the sunset over the neighborhood her family had served for 2 decades. The beads caught the golden light, casting silver reflections on Miguel's tools. Elena's letter had promised that seeds planted in darkness would grow into forests. But Rosa had never imagined the forest would arrive driving 18-wheelers and carrying laptops, armed with truth and determination to see justice done. "Earl," she said softly, "why are you doing this?" His eyes crinkled with something deeper than sympathy. "Because Miguel never asked if I could pay before he fixed my rig on Christmas Eve 1998. Some debts don't have dollar amounts." Rosa nodded, understanding finally flooding through her. Elena had been right. Kindness did return like rain, when you least expected it, but exactly when you needed it most.
Thompson's insurance office felt like a courtroom at noon. Rosa sat across from the man who'd spent 2 weeks destroying her family's reputation. Elena's beads draped visibly over her white blouse. Carmen Delgado flanked her left, a briefcase full of evidence at her feet. On her right, Earl Washington sat with the quiet dignity of a man who'd witnessed history being made. "Mr. Thompson," Carmen began, sliding Jake's dashcam footage across the desk. "We have new evidence regarding Miguel Martinez's accident." Thompson's confidence wavered as he watched the BMW deliberately sideswipe Miguel's truck. The license plate was clear as daylight, the driver's intent unmistakable. This doesn't change anything," Thompson stammered. "Insurance fraud investigations require—" "Require what?" Rosa's voice was steady as Elena's prayers. "Require you to ignore criminal assault? Require you to call good men criminals because of their last names?" Carmen opened her briefcase. "Mr. Thompson, your denial rate for Latino claimants is 300% higher than state average. We have documentation of your coordination with Steve Walsh, including social media connections to anti-immigration groups." Thompson's face flushed red. You can't prove coordination." "Can't we?" Carmen slid printed emails across the desk. "These are from Walsh's business account, discussing problem businesses in gentrification target areas. Your name appears in several threads." Earl leaned forward. "Mr. Thompson, I've been driving these highways for 40 years. Miguel Martinez helped more stranded families than you've had hot dinners. What's your excuse for calling him a criminal?" "Look, I was just doing my job." "Your job?" Rosa touched the beads, drawing strength from Elena's memory. "Your job is investigating claims, not destroying reputations based on prejudice." Thompson's phone buzzed with a news alert. Channel 12's morning broadcast had aired Jake's footage alongside interviews with dozens of truckers Miguel had helped. The narrative was crumbling in real time.
The BMW driver was arrested this morning, Carmen continued. Drunk driving, assault with a deadly weapon, leaving the scene. His father's trying to buy his way out, but federal charges don't disappear with money. Rosa watched Thompson realize his position was hopeless. The evidence was overwhelming, the conspiracy exposed, his credibility destroyed by his own documented bias. Furthermore, Carmen added, the Justice Department is reviewing your entire caseload for civil rights violations. Every Latino claimed you've denied will be re-examined. Thompson slumped in his chair. What do you want? Miguel's claim approved immediately, Rosa said. Full medical coverage, no conditions. And a public apology, Earl added. Miguel Martinez deserves his reputation restored. Thompson nodded weakly, signing documents with shaken hands. But Rosa felt no satisfaction in his defeat. Victory meant Miguel coming home, their business restored, their community protected. Outside the office, a convoy of 18-wheelers stretched along the street. Drivers stood beside their rigs in silent solidarity, CB radios crackling with support from across Texas. Rosa, Carmen said, watching the truckers, this is just the beginning. Walsh will escalate now that Thompson's exposed. You ready for the real fight? Rosa looked at the convoy, then at Earl's weathered face, then at Elena's beads catching sunlight. 20 years ago, Miguel had helped a stranded trucker on Christmas Eve. Today, that kindness had returned multiplied across highways and CB channels, transforming into an army of unexpected allies. Carmen, Rosa said softly, my mother taught me that justice grows from connections we build with people who understand struggle. Today, I learned she was right. Earl's radio crackled. Breaker 19, this is Alamo Rose. Martinez Auto Repair is back in business. The convoy's horns echoed across East San Antonio like a victory song. But Rosa knew the hardest battle still lay ahead. Thompson was defeated, but Walsh remained dangerous, cornered and desperate. She touched Elena's beads one more time. Tomorrow, they would face whatever came next. Today, they had proven that truth could triumph over lies when good people stood together. The war wasn't over, but they had won their first real victory.
Sacred Heart Catholic Church's community hall had never seen a crowd like this. Rosa stood at the back, Elena's beads catching fluorescent light as 300 people filled every seat, lined every wall, spilled into the hallway. Father Martinez had opened with prayers in Spanish and English, but Rosa knew this wasn't about faith, it was about war. Steve Walsh commanded the microphone like a politician, his voice smooth as oil over gravel. Community safety requires accountability, he said, scanning the divided room. When businesses operate outside normal standards, when insurance investigations raise questions about practices. He never mentioned race, but the implications hung in the air like smoke. Rosa watched Latino families on the left side, newer Anglo residents on the right. The division was surgical, precise, exactly what Walsh had orchestrated for years. The Martinez family has brought negative attention to our neighborhood, Walsh continued. Media scrutiny, police investigations, federal interference in local business. Father Martinez stood. Steve, these are serious accusations. Do you have proof? Walsh's smile was sharp as broken promises. I have patterns, Father. Late-night cash transactions, insurance fraud investigations, federal agents asking questions. Each word was carefully chosen, technically true, but spiritually poisonous. Thompson sat in the back row, his presence no longer hidden. Their alliance was exposed, but Walsh didn't care. Desperate men abandoned subtlety. Rosa approached the microphone, beads visible over her navy dress. The room fell silent as she began not with defense, but with Elena's story.
"My mother cleaned houses in Alamo Heights for 30 years, Rosa said quietly. She wore these beads to every job, where people called her names, questioned her honesty, treated her like a criminal for speaking Spanish." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This wasn't the angry denial they'd expected. "Yesterday, video evidence proved my husband was the victim of criminal assault. The same people questioning his character never mentioned he was saving a family with a baby." Rosa's voice remained steady, carrying Elena's dignity. "Miguel spent 20 years helping anyone who needed it, regardless of ability to pay. Earl Washington stood from the front row. Miguel fixed my rig Christmas Eve 1998, drove through a blizzard to help me. Then Jake Chen appeared on the large screen via video call. Miguel's the most honest mechanic I've ever met, saved my family's livelihood." One by one, testimonies filled the room. Dr. Hernandez spoke about Miguel's community service. Carmen detailed the systematic harassment pattern. Marcus presented digital evidence of Walsh's coordination with developers. Walsh's mask began slipping. "These people always stick together, manufacture stories." "These people?" Father Martinez's voice cut through the tension like a blade. The words hung in the air, finally naked and unmistakable. Walsh had revealed his true heart, exactly as Elena's letter had predicted. Rosa stepped closer to the microphone. "Mr. Walsh, my mother taught me that when someone shows you their true character, believe them the first time. Tonight, you've shown this community your character." City Councilman Rodriguez stood. "Based on tonight's testimony and federal evidence, I'm calling for a formal investigation into discriminatory business practices targeting Latino entrepreneurs." The room erupted. Walsh looked around desperately as support evaporated in real time. Thompson quietly slipped out the back door, abandoning his ally to face the consequences alone. Dr. Hernandez approached the microphone. "I've watched this community's true character emerge, not in what we say, but in what we do. Miguel Martinez represents the best of who we can be." Applause filled the hall as neighbors crossed the invisible divide. Anglo families approached Rosa with apologies and offers of support. The beads had witnessed truth triumph over prejudice through dignity rather than anger. Outside, lines of trucks honked support, while Selena's restored mural glowed under streetlights, surrounded by flowers from neighbors who finally understood what they'd almost lost. Rosa drove home past Walsh's darkened garage, past the community center where plans were already forming for the neighborhood's first unified Dia de los Muertos celebration. Elena's reign had finally come, washing away years of division with the simple power of truth spoken with courage.
Miguel's first steps back into the shop were unsteady but determined. 3 weeks after the town hall meeting, he moved slowly through the garage that had become a symbol of resistance. His walking cast tapped against concrete floors that Rosa had scrubbed clean of graffiti, past workbenches reorganized by neighbors who'd volunteered their labor. "Mija," he whispered, touching the restored Selena mural. "What happened while I was sleeping?" Rosa smiled, adjusting Elena's beads around her neck. "Miracles, Miguel. Your kindness came home." The insurance settlement had arrived with Thompson's grudging apology, covering every medical bill and providing enough to expand the shop. Rosa hired Danny Morales, a young mechanic from San Antonio College, and Sarah Chen, Jake's sister studying automotive engineering. Walsh's automotive sat empty 3 blocks away, a for-lease sign swaying in the autumn breeze. His customers had abandoned him after the town hall exposure, choosing dignity over convenience. The building would become a community center featuring murals by local artists. Thompson was gone too, terminated after the Justice Department's investigation revealed systematic bias spanning 5 years. His replacement, Maria Santos, had implemented sensitivity training and community outreach programs. The shop buzzed with new energy. Earl Washington had made it unofficial headquarters for the Truckers Network, supporting Latino businesses along I-35. CB radio chatter mixed with the sound of air wrenches and Miguel's gentle instructions to his new apprentices. "Danny, remember, engines have personalities," Miguel explained, watching the young man's careful movements. "Listen to what they're telling you." Rosa created a shrine in the office corner. Elena's letter, the rosary beads, photos spanning 3 generations of struggle and triumph. Visitors from other communities came to study their success, always asking about the beads' significance. Dr. Hernandez stopped by with fresh tamales from her mother's kitchen. "Miguel, you saved my confidence in this neighborhood. We almost lost something precious." The October Dia de los Muertos celebration became East San Antonio's first truly integrated community event. Families who'd never spoken shared food and stories, building bridges Miguel's accident had made possible. Carmen Delgado used their case as precedent for other discrimination lawsuits across Texas. The Martinez family's struggle had created legal pathways for families facing similar persecution. Miguel's gentle nature remained unchanged, but his brush with death had deepened his understanding. Every repair connected to someone's livelihood. Every fair price built community trust. His generosity now included teaching neighborhood kids about engines and life. "Rosa," he said one evening, watching her balance books at Elena's old desk, "I dreamed about your mother while I was unconscious." What did she say? That kindness plants forests, not just flowers. Miguel gestured toward the bustling shop. "I think she was right." Rosa's teenage niece Patricia began working summers, learning both mechanics and business management. She asked about Elena's beads, listening wide-eyed to stories of farm worker strikes and civil rights battles. "Tia Rosa," she said, "will I carry them someday?" Rosa touched the silver links, feeling Elena's presence in the question. "When you're ready to fight for something bigger than yourself." The shop's grand reopening coincided with San Antonio's Fiesta celebration. Mariachi music mixed with diesel engines as 3 communities, Latino, Anglo, and the diverse trucker network, celebrated together. Food trucks served everything from barbacoa to Vietnamese banh mi. Earl Washington served as honorary Grand Marshal, his Peterbilt leading a parade of restored classics through the East Side. The CB radio crackled with congratulations from drivers spanning Texas to California. The BMW driver received 2 years in prison and full restitution. His father's attempts to buy influence had failed when Earl's trucker network organized peaceful protests at his business. As autumn light streamed through the shop windows, Rosa arranged Elena's beads in their shrine. Miguel taught Danny to rebuild an engine while Sarah calculated stress tolerances on her laptop. Past, present, and future united in sacred space. Justice had arrived not as thunder, but as rain, gentle, persistent, nourishing everything it touched.
5 years later, Martinez Auto Repair and Training Center stretched across the entire block. Rosa stood in the main bay, watching 15 mechanics from diverse backgrounds work beneath the expanded Selena mural. The Tejano Queen's smile had been restored and enlarged, now surrounded by portraits of community heroes painted by local artists. Miguel, graying but steady, guided a young veteran through engine diagnostics. "Listen, mijo, the engine tells you everything if you pay attention." The shop's transformation exceeded even Elena's dreams of justice through unity. Their partnership with San Antonio College had created the Miguel Martinez Scholarship for first-generation automotive students. Recipients included recent immigrants, returning veterans, and career-changing professionals seeking economic mobility. "Dia Rosa," Patricia called from the office. "The reporter from Austin American-Statesman is here for the interview." Patricia Martinez Chen had married Jake's brother 2 years ago, managing the shop's computer systems while pursuing her MBA. Elena's beads hung around her neck during important negotiations, carrying forward the tradition of visible faith during professional challenges.
The presidential award ceremony in Washington had been surreal. Rosa standing in the Rose Garden receiving recognition for community leadership while wearing her mother's rosary. The citation read, "For transforming personal tragedy into systemic change, creating pathways for economic justice through cultural preservation." Earl Washington, now 72, maintained an office at the shop where he mentored young drivers. His stories bridged old-school trucking brotherhood with modern diversity, teaching CB etiquette and highway culture to a new generation. "Mrs. Martinez," the reporter said, setting up her camera, "your success model is being replicated across Texas. What's the secret?" Rosa touched the beads through her blouse, feeling Elena's presence. "My mother taught me that kindness plants seeds in unexpected places. Sometimes they grow into forests." The annual Wheels and Tamales Festival now drew visitors from neighboring states. Car enthusiasts, food vendors, and community organizations gathered to celebrate the intersection of automotive culture and Latino heritage. Earl served as honorary Grand Marshal, his restored Peterbilt leading classic cars and modern marvels through East San Antonio. Marcus had parlayed his security skills into a consulting business, helping other communities identify and combat systematic discrimination. The Martinez case provided legal precedents protecting minority-owned businesses across the Southwest. Miguel emerged from the training bay, wiping his hands on a rag that had become more ritual than necessity. At 57, he'd become a grandfather figure to young mechanics, regardless of background. His brush with death had taught him that every repair connects to someone's dreams. "Rosa," he said, watching Patricia explain computer diagnostics to a customer, "your mother would be proud." Through the window, they could see the community center that had replaced Walsh's garage. Children played in the courtyard while their parents attended English classes upstairs. The building's mural depicted farm workers and mechanics working side by side, honoring both Elena's and Miguel's contributions to the neighborhood. Carmen Delgado visited monthly, updating them on discrimination cases across Texas. The Martinez precedent had protected dozens of families, turning their personal struggle into a shield for others facing similar persecution. That evening, Rosa and Patricia closed the shop together. 3 generations of women had now touched these beads during moments of crisis and triumph. Elena's silver links connected past struggles to present victories, carrying prayers across decades of change. "Dia," Patricia said, locking the office safe where Elena's letter lived beside business awards, "tell me again about Bisabuela's farm worker days." Rosa smiled, understanding that every retelling strengthened the chain connecting past sacrifice to future possibility. Outside, the restored Selena mural caught streetlight, the Tejano Queen's smile watching over a neighborhood transformed. Trucks rumbled past, carrying goods and dreams, their CB radios crackling with stories of honest mechanics and fair prices. Rosa placed Elena's beads in their shrine, surrounding them with photos of victories won and communities saved. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight belongs to gratitude for seeds that had grown into forests of unexpected allies. "Mija, la bondad regresa como lluvia," she whispered to the silver cross. "Kindness returns like rain." Sometimes the smallest acts of generosity create the strongest foundations for justice. When we plant compassion without expecting harvest, we cultivate fields of hope that bloom exactly when the world needs them most.